Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Chair of the Charity Commission, Mark Sims.
That felt slightly an X Factor moment for me, so thank you, Ben. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Charity Commission's annual public meeting. I'm delighted to see so many of you in the room, and equally delighted that we've got thousands of people joining us online. So thank you all for being here. This is my first annual public meeting and my last, so a short interlude of 7 months, which has mostly been short and sweet. I'd like to start by thanking all of those who've supported me in this role, notably my brilliant board, the Commission's expert and committed staff, and most of all to the many trustees, volunteers and beneficiaries of charities that I've met during my time as chair. I've had the great privilege of visiting many charities up and down the country, in England and in Wales. From a charity supporting young carers, a charity offering a safe place for women who have nowhere to live, a charity working to prevent suicide in the southwest, to a community kitchen not far from us here in South London, and many, many more. I've worked in the sector for over 25 years. I know that's hard to believe given my youthful looks, but I remain inspired every day by the passion, diversity, tenacity, and sheer hard work of all of those involved in charities. I want to use this platform to reflect on an issue that really matters to me, as a citizen, as a charity worker, and of course, as chair of the Charity Commission. And I make no apology for starting these proceedings on a rather downbeat note. Anyone who knows me knows I always accentuate the positive. But if you know me, you also know that I never hold back from calling out issues that threaten the strength of this amazing sector. One of these issues is the growing hostility that many of those involved in charities are facing right now. Not for any misdemeanour or shortcomings, but for simply doing their jobs, whether it's as a paid member of staff or as a volunteer. Over recent months, I've seen charity workers verbally and physically abused in the streets. We've heard of death threats, threats of sexual assault, witnessed damage and vandalism to charity offices and premises. I have met with charities working with refugees and migrants to hear about the ridiculous challenges that they're facing, and have been incredibly disturbed to hear about the measures some of them are having to take just to keep themselves, their staff, and their families safe from harm. The charities targeted vary. Some support women, some refugees and asylum seekers, some work with young people, and some work with people who've got nowhere to live, and even places of worship. What unites them all, though, is what they are doing is what they were exactly set up to do, to deliver their purposes, the ones that are set out in their governing documents, which Parliament has ruled are charitable. Later this week, NCVO will publish the findings of their listening forums, which its members will reveal, amongst other things, that some charities are living in a pervasive climate of fear, with staff feeling uncomfortable simply going to and from work, and people who use charities are afraid to walk the streets. Let me be clear, charities are not above the law or beyond scrutiny. Their work is absolutely open to challenge and debate, but nobody, and I mean nobody, should face abuse for simply doing their job. What I have found especially disturbing is how little surprise these events have sparked beyond the sector itself. If we accept as normal that charity workers being abused in the streets, their families threatened with violence, what will shock us as a nation? There's something insidious about this normalisation. The analogy of an eroding shoreline springs to mind. Waves of violence and threat crashing against land, day by day, wearing us down, inch by inch, the values and norms that we once took for granted. And yet, if we do not pay careful attention to this, we may fail to notice, before it's too late, that we are standing on the edge of a cliff. Let me tell you, though, what gives me hope, and why, more importantly. Charities exist precisely to address society's most difficult and challenging needs. And by far from being solely victims of these erosions, the sector is one of our greatest assets in reclaiming this firm ground and building a stronger future for us all. Not just in the work that they do day in, day out to support the most vulnerable, to promote cohesion and to make communities safer and stronger, but also in the powerful example that they set by showing us all what good that they do and why. Charities are not beholden to the electoral cycle, to the profit motive, or to private interest. They are subject only to their own purposes and, by extension, charity law that we uphold as the Commission as their regulator. This means that charities can be bold where others might be timid, audacious where others might be complacent. They can model a better way of doing things. What does this really mean in practice? I'm not suggesting for a minute that charities should, in the face of attack, be passive or simply turn the other cheek. But, and this is an important but, they themselves should not seek to demonise and dehumanise, dismissing those who hold different views as wrong or small-minded or politically motivated. Instead, I think, charities have the power, the responsibility and absolutely the skill to talk up what is right, not to talk down to those they think we are wrong. Seek to heal rather than fueling division. Don't split us into them and us. Don't go on personal vendettas against politicians, on commentators, and in these times, those influencers that are critical of our work. But use instead your righteous anger to secure better outcomes for those that need our help, for our beneficiaries. To bring people around to our way of thinking. Be loud and proud about the work that you do. Be unapologetic, but be open-hearted in what you say and what you do. Take steps to protect your staff and volunteers. Trustees have a duty in law to do that. But try all the while to see that everyone you come into contact as a potential supporter rather than a potential foe. I believe, some may think rather, if you like, foolishly, that meaningful dialogue is still possible. We often see people moving from left to right and around the centre, but I believe charities are best placed to inspire, inform and enliven dialogue. Hold a mirror up to society, reflect what works, point out where there is work to do and make a case for our communities and for the society that we'd like to see. The Charity Commission itself has an important role to play here. We are established by Parliament to promote public trust in charities and by supporting trustees in meeting their legal duties, notably to promote charities' purposes and, importantly, to intervene where this does not happen. We are fiercely independent, non-ministerial, and we are answerable only to Parliament and, in the exercise of our statutory powers, to the courts. So much like charities themselves, we are purpose-led and we can take the long view. From this position, we can offer reassurance where there is doubt and calm where there is moral panic, and we can be unambiguous in upholding the law and the right, indeed the duty, of charities to pursue their purposes in law. This is our promise to the public. We assess every concern that comes to us. No complaint will be dismissed out of hand. No concern will be ignored. But we refuse to be dragged into complaints that seek to weaponise the legitimate and purposeful work of charities. Our job is to uphold charity law, the law a democratically elected Parliament has passed. We will not indulge those who seek to misuse the Commission as a regulator to further their political ends or to undermine the rights of charities in law. Whilst transparency itself is an important foundation stone of the Register of Charities, we are sympathetic to trustee applications for dispensations for their names appearing on the public register, where there is evidence that they may be targeted. And this is sadly a feature of society today. This morning, we published updated guidance for charities impacted by community disruption and violence. This in itself is remarkable, providing practical steers on how to help trustees, staff and volunteers keep safe from harm. and we continue to meet leaders of charities of all sizes from Wales and England, hearing about the issues that matter to them, supporting them with formal guidance and, where necessary, formal casework. My term ends next month, but our work will continue. I hand over with great confidence to my successor, Dame Julia Unwin, and to the board, and of course to the executive, the brilliant and committed staff of the Commission, and with the continued excellent leadership of our Chief Executive, David, who you're going to hear from after me. More importantly, though, I leave with great confidence in you, the trustees and charity colleagues and volunteers that you face with courage every day. The erosion that I describe is real, but so is the bedrock of decency. Compassion and civic strength that charities represent, that bedrock has weathered storms for decades, indeed centuries. And let me remind you of the substantial bedrock that we stand on. There are 170,000 charities registered with us, governed by nearly 1 million trustees, the vast majority of which are volunteers. These people have chosen to step forward, to take responsibility and to serve their communities, to stand firm in protecting the shoreline of a civilised, humane and hopeful society. Ours is most certainly not a sector in decline on that front. So stand firm, speak proudly, do your work with open hearts, and know in doing so you are not just serving your beneficiaries, you are showing this country what we can be at our best. Thank you. David Holdsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mark. And good morning and welcome, everyone. Croeso bore da. And thank you for everyone joining us here in the room and online from across England and Wales and perhaps beyond. Mark has focused on some of the social and political challenges facing the sector right now. The financial environment is also challenging, but as many of you have heard me say over the last year, I believe the greatest challenges do also offer the greatest opportunities. Many charities at the moment face a triple crunch: rising costs, rising demands, and significant pressure on income. Our first annual charity sector risk assessment, published earlier this year, highlights financial sustainability as among the pressing issues facing the sector in 2025. Similarly, research published this year showed that charities are supporting 3 times as many people as they were 5 years ago. Nearly half of charity trustees said their charity had been forced to make changes as a result of the cost of living pressures in the past year. And around 1 in 10 told us they had stopped providing a particular service. Trustees of charities large and small are facing the hard reality that simply keeping on doing, keeping on going, is no longer an option. On top of financial pressures, we know that charities face a range of other challenges, some of which covered by Mark. As well as the social issues, there's demographic change, ageing populations in some areas, growing diversity in others, geographic disparities, generational shifts in expectations around participation, transparency, and accountability. And then there's technology. AI and digital transformation present exciting opportunities, but also risks that must be managed. Charities are having to make tough choices, in some cases controversial choices. Now, the question is not whether trustees should respond. In fact, it is vital they do. But how trustees respond is equally important. And with that in mind, let me be clear about 2 things this morning. First, the Commission is not here to second-guess trustees who make tough decisions in the face of straitened financial circumstances, and if they do so within the law and our guidance. We've seen some big announcements by charities over recent months. Some have been relatively painless, if significant. We've heard that the Ironbridge Gorge Museum's trust is winding up and is transferring its charitable assets to the National Trust, because doing so will help the charity deliver on the promise made in its purposes, namely to preserve and promote the heritage of the cradle of the Industrial Revolution. So a challenge was presented, but was transformed into an opportunity. Some decisions, however, have been harder. NSPCC is undergoing a significant challenge in the face of economic diversity, and to help ensure its vital work to keep children safe continue long into the future. Change of this scale is never easy, and it's right that trustees are adapting, proactively looking to the future, not just today, to ensure the vital work they do for their beneficiaries continues. It's also important, however, that trustees explain their decision-making, for as we know, transparency is critical to public trust and confidence. The Commission's role in situations like these is clear: to be sure that trustees comply with their legal duties, follow proper processes, and act in accordance with charity law when making significant decisions about a charity's future. Where trustees do so, even where the decisions are controversial and difficult, it is not our role to prevent them from exercising their judgment about how best to fulfill their charity's purposes. So that's my first assurance. We will not come down and interfere with trustee decision-making, especially when it's difficult choices in the face of impossible circumstances. Indeed, where appropriate, we will step in to defend not the decisions, but their right and the duty to make such decisions. Because the Commission's role is not to set the course for charities, to tell them how to do their work. Our duty instead is to ensure that trustees are steering according to their fixed navigational point, namely their charitable purpose. Now, second and linked, I want to be clear, where trustees don't follow our guidance or breach charity law, we will take action. Every concern raised with us is examined. No complaint within our remit is dismissed. And where we find trustees have failed in their legal duties, whether in how decisions are made or how charitable resources are protected, we will step in decisively to protect the charity's purpose and its assets. That's our duty to the public and to donors. And it's necessary not just for the charity in question, but in promoting wider public trust in charities, which we know is so essential to the public's willingness to give and upon which charities rely. Our role in overseeing the sector and its income is aimed at giving donors and funders the confidence that when they give to a registered charity, their money is protected and used for the purposes it is given for. So we're pleased that against the backdrop of these challenges, public trust in charities remains high, with almost 60% of people reporting high trust in charities, placing them second only to doctors as institutions. Similarly, confidence in charitable spending has improved, with over 6 in 10 people believing donations are reaching the intended cause, an increase of 7 percentage points in 12 months, and a finding that the sector and we as a regulator should take comfort in. Now, the Commission itself has had to grapple with record levels of demand for our services, while our staff and resources have been shrinking. So this has led to some pain points which we need to acknowledge and which some of you will have felt as we have. For example, in the year to March 2025, we received 9,836 applications to register a charity. That's a 9% increase on previous years, while our headcount was declining. So we too have faced tough decisions and have worked to improve our operational efficiency to ensure that we fulfill our core functions as effectively and cost-effectively as possible. We measure our operational efficiency by looking at cases concluded per full-time staff member in any given unit. And our data shows us, over recent years, our productivity has improved in key regulatory functions. In our registrations function, despite the increased pressures and volumes and the reduction in staff, our productivity has increased 10% every year since 2022. Similar improvements are seen in regulatory concern work, thanks to more efficient triaging, use of technology, and effective handling of incoming concerns about charities. Over the past 4 years, the number of regulatory concern matters being handled has more than doubled from 38 to 82 per case officer. If you're interested in further figures and how your money as taxpayers is being spent, you can, of course, look at our annual report where this is set out in more detail. So looking ahead, I am proud of these improvements on efficiency and productivity. They put us in a great position as we look to the challenges and opportunities ahead. And they've been recognised in a vote of confidence from His Majesty's Treasury, which has granted us a significant funding increase in this year's spending review. The settlement will allow us to invest in technology, digital solutions, and build capacity so that we are future-proofed against rising demand. I'm confident that charities and the public will see the benefit of these investments over the coming years, and that their experience of the Commission will be smoother, more efficient, and quicker than it currently is. It's my aim and my intention to ensure that the Commission continues to deliver a world-class public service by making the most of new technologies, but also delivering on our time-honoured purpose. The hard work now to prepare for the significant changes we will need to make in order to make the most of the new resources within the timescale available. As part of these changes, I want to set out our ambition. The Commission must fulfil its potential in engaging directly with charities, using our convening power, bringing the sector together to tackle shared challenges, but also forge new collaborations. Because the Commission's purpose, as set by Parliament, is not just to respond what comes into us, whether that's an application to register a new charity or a complaint for us to assess, but also to be a proactive and supportive regulator, spotting emerging issues and trends, both from our own data and from the environment in which we and charities operate. We want to strengthen our capacity for helping the sector get ahead of problems and to seize opportunities. Earlier this year, we led a roundtable bringing government, international aid agencies together to discuss ways of delivering aid safely to those impacted by war in the Middle East. More recently, as Mark mentioned, we met charities working with refugee communities to understand the hostilities they face and the steps needed to keep their staff and volunteers safe from harm, as terrible as it is that that was needed. Looking ahead, we intend to move beyond those responsive interventions to explore structured, sustained engagement with subsectors, bringing together charities, with government departments, with business and local authorities to help address systemic challenges. Let me be clear, it's not about the Commission duplicating the excellent work of existing infrastructure bodies and subsector leaders. It's about leveraging our unique position at the intersection of government, the sector, and the public we all serve, a vantage point that enables us to broker dialogue and facilitate action that might not otherwise happen. And this matters. The challenges facing charities and the communities they serve are too complex, too urgent for fragmented responses, and we'll share further details in the coming months. So in conclusion, let me return to where I began. The circumstances facing charities right now are undeniably challenging. But charity has always been about making a promise to the future, a commitment that outlasts any individual trustee, any particular moment, any specific method of delivery. I've set out in my previous speeches that charity and trusteeship are acts of radical optimism, and that has never been more needed. As your regulator, we've no doubt how challenging it is at the moment, but charities have endured for centuries. They have faced into the intractable problems that others cannot solve, and they have made our country and the world a better place, often when facing our darkest times. This generation of trustees, volunteers, charity workers, I know from my many visits and discussions, are every bit as determined, innovative, and remarkable as the giants of the past. You're the ones turning charitable purposes into reality every single day, often in the most difficult of circumstances. That work matters. Your commitment matters, and we are here to support it. So, on behalf of the Commission, thank you for all you do. Bore da diolch. So now if I could ask the executive team to come to the stage, and we will open the floor to questions. Whilst the executive team are coming up, there'll just be a short video playing behind us. Okay, now's the time you've all been waiting for, the time when you get to grill us at the one time of the year. So if I start with just introducing the executive team first, and then please do raise your hands, and we have people with microphones who will come to you. Please wait until they get to you with the microphone to speak. That's because there are people watching online, so we've got thousands of members of the sector and members of the public watching online, so it's important you have the microphone, even if you have a loud voice, so they can hear you at home as well. So.
Yep. Morning, everybody. I'm Nick Baker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Helen Erner, and I'm the Director of Regulatory Services.
Good morning. I'm Eva Abelis, and I'm the Interim Director of Legal and Accountancy.
And I'm Paul Latham. I'm Director of Communications and Policy.
We have microphones on us.
Yeah.
Can we ask the sound team and the technical team to perhaps raise the volume? Thank you.
Is that better? We can't hear. Yeah, so I'm Nick Baker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer.
Hello, I'm Helen Erner. I'm the Director of Regulatory Services.
I'm Eva Abelis. I'm Interim Director of Legal and Accountancy.
And I'm Paul Latham. I'm Director of Communications and Policy.
Okay, so we have people online with questions, and we have people in the room. So if you raise your hand, we'll come to you in order. We have a gentleman here, two gentlemen here, and then we have a lady here with the red beret and a gentleman at the back.
Thank you very much. My name's Keith Best. I chair 3 charities and I'm trustee of several others. I greatly admire and respect the work of the Charity Commission, and I do appreciate the enormous pressures that you're under, as you've explained, David. I wish to have some assurance about joined-up thinking within the Charity Commission itself. And I'll give a very brief example, and you know about it because I've written to you about it. It is one of the charities of which I'm a trustee had a rogue trustee who unconstitutionally purported to act on behalf of the trustee. As a result of that, we lodged a serious incident with you and also contacted Action Fraud. To our amazement, that person then was able to actually apply to put on the register to delete all the existing legitimate trustees and substitute her own place people. When we complained about that, we were told it could not be changed, and I'm afraid it took a letter to you, David, to actually have that acknowledged as an error, but after a lot of reputational damage had been done to the charity. Now, it may be a unique experience, but nevertheless, if it's not, it shows that there's some probable linkage between one part of the Charity Commission and the other, and so it's a question really of assurance about joined-up thinking.
Thank you. It's a really good point. And I think from our perspective, the key is the login details for the charity. It's for charity trustees to manage the login details. The difficulty we have is when there is a dispute with the trustee body and the access to our online service. So what we have done, we've put in place now the My Charity Commission account, which addresses some of those issues, but won't fully resolve the ability of someone being able to manage the own information of the charity on our register, because that was always the point of introducing the new service, was that trustees were in control of the data the public saw about them and the data on the register in line with GDPR. So we know we've got issues there, but Helen and the team are working with technology to look at how we can limit as far as possible those instances when it happens.
Do you mind if I just add, is that your feedback's really helpful, because of course there's always ways in which we can improve. So when you've taken the time to identify something, that is very helpful feedback for us so that we can reflect. So thank you for doing that.
Can you hear me? My name's David Bede, and my question is about the Central YMCA, which was in Great Russell Street off Tottenham Court Road. The Central YMCA had around 5,000 members, 50,000 casual users. It was used by University College Hospital for all its rehab classes. It was used by dozens of primary schools. It had the largest program for older people anywhere in England, which I used. I also used it in 1977 when it first opened, when I was a young youth and community worker. On December the 2nd last year, I received an email, as did thousands of other people, saying the site had been sold and it was going to close on February the 7th this year. It's on the borough border. I forwarded my email to Keir Starmer, the constituency MP, to Rachel Blake, to about 20 ward councillors. They all replied within 2 hours, stating their absolute astonishment that the most important wellbeing centre in London could be sold in secret. And that is due to your deregulating your requirements for the sale of charity assets 2 years ago. We wrote to every commissioner. We didn't get anywhere. Because we can't get anywhere, why did you make that deregulation, and would you revert to your previous situation so that something like this can never happen again? It's affected the lives of thousands of people because, in my view, of your dereliction in making it easy for property speculators to dangle millions of pounds in front of charity trustees and then have the sale in total and absolute secrecy. I mean, it's scandalous. I'm sorry to be upset about it because this has affected the lives of thousands of people. It should never have been allowed to happen.
So, thanks for the question. I think setting out first and foremost, we do understand the strength of feeling. I know the case did come across my desk. As I set out in my speech, as the regulator, trustees have the power to make those decisions in law. We can only intervene in law where those decisions are taken unlawfully, even where we know some of the consequences for local communities are perhaps not what those communities want. So, what's the straight answer? Why did you make it easy 2 years ago for charity assets to be sold? We didn't. The Law Commission put forward those ideas, and the government of the day took them through Parliament. So one of the things for people to understand is the laws of today are not set by us as the regulator. They are set by the democratically elected members of the House of Parliament. The Law Commission put forward, after engaging with the sector themselves put forward some of the suggestions for the Law Commission, and the Law Commission then took them into government. It was the government who put them forward to Parliament. It went through a parliamentary process, and Parliament amended and adapted the regulations. So I understand there may be some unintended consequences, and we're really happy to engage with you and look at this and look at how can we learn, how can we adapt going forward, because we do understand, and we understand the strength of feeling in communities with these assets that have been there for a long time and were put in there for the communities. But we also have to recognise that trustees are also sometimes facing impossible decisions. And where their decisions are lawful, we are prevented from intervening. But that doesn't mean we don't understand and we don't get the strength of feeling. But if you want to speak to Helen and Eva afterwards and myself, we're very happy to engage.
Good afternoon, Executive. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Bent. I represent a umbrella organisation. Umbrella means one organisation. We subcontract our service so that they can, service providers can meet the needs of vulnerable, marginalised group in society. The organisation is lived experience. So we are going through, we have the experience of mental health conditions. We have the experience of racism. We have the experience of being part of a disadvantage. Why I am here today is to say that, as Shakespeare says, I am of darker hue. The Charity Commissioner in the past have not been representing diversity. There is a policy guidance which has been done recently, which is the Diversity and Inclusion Guidance 2024 to 2027. But there are still issues. You are on the stage now, and it is still clear you are not representing the BME community. Yes, there is a female commissioner, yeah, but we are still not being represented. The disabled community still not being represented. Elderly community still not being represented. Young people still not being represented. So, you have mechanisms whereby you can track your progress of diversity. So, my question is, how neutral are these progress going to be? Because a lot of the time, these tracking progress are funded by the government, so they're not neutral. Diversity cannot happen if your tracking mechanism is biased.
Okay, if I just, so thanks for the question, and Paul's been working on this issue for quite a while now at the Commission, so we fully recognise the challenges we've still got as a sector and that we have as a regulator in making sure we are representative. Paul, do you want to speak about some of the work that's being done?
Yes, so we've put a lot of focus into the area of EDI and kind of understanding, and this is about the base of trusteeship within the charity sector more widely. So we conducted some research with Pro Bono Economics, an economic consultancy charity, to understand the makeup of trustees, including in a variety of different dimensions at the current time. And using that insight, we've been engaging really closely with sector representative bodies and others to think about, well, how can we do what's within our gift as the regulator to think about promoting a more diverse, more representative trusteeship across England and Wales. So we've updated our guidance on finding new trustees. We have encouraged, we can't mandate, but we've encouraged charities to think about doing audits of their diversity, advertising their trustee roles.
We say it begins with you. Charity begins at home. It's no good you telling trustees to be diverse when you, the commissioner, are not diverse. You get diverse, charities will get diverse. So we lead by example. You are the regulators. You cannot be telling charities to get diverse when the commissioner itself is not diverse.
So I also understand that point, and so you've got members of the executive team here. We are overseen by a board who are appointed by the department.
And they are white as well?
Well, there are 3 board members sitting in front of you here, so perhaps you'd like to speak with them afterwards. I know that EDI is a focus for the Department for Culture, Media and Sport when it makes appointments to our board, so that isn't within our gift as the executive, but we do have regular discussions with the government about how it makes appointments, and I know it does have a focus in this area. But I'm more than happy to have a conversation later about the work that we're doing.
I don't want to take up the time, because obviously it is time. But all I have to say, charity begins at home. You need to lead in terms of diversity. I've mentioned about black, but it also relates to elderly, the disabled, the young, because at the moment, male, pale, and stale. Thank you.
Judy Hawes, October Gallery Educational Trust, showing work from around the planet since 47 years. How can I register as a charity with anti-money laundering regulations?
So in terms of, we're happy, we've got staff here from the registration team who can have a chat to you afterwards. Charities, like every organisation in the UK, are subject to anti-money laundering regulations. We're not exempt, so we do have to comply. But if there are specific issues, please do. Lady at the back with glasses on, Jenny, she's waving at you now. Please grab her afterwards and talk about your specific case. We'll try and help, okay? There's a gentleman with his hand up just behind. That's fine, but then the gentleman at the back, and then we've got a question from home.
My name is Ahmed Thompson. I'm a barrister. I act as a legal advisor to several charities, have been doing for many years. And I'd just like to follow up on the first question, where someone who has access to changing the data on the website hijacks the charity and puts in their own people. And what I found over time is that before the My Charity account was introduced, where that happened, and it didn't happen that regularly, but it did happen from time to time. Where that happened, it was relatively easy to contact the Charity Commission and say, look, this is what's happened. Can you help? And the Charity Commission then seemed much freer to be able to put things right. Now with the My Charity Commission account in place, and it has been for several years now, it's sort of become established, what I've seen is that it's much more difficult to put things right. And the Charity Commission says, well, we can only advise, but we can't make a decision. And I understand that, but surely there must be some way of reviewing the administration by the trustees of the My Charity accounts and stepping in and saying, it looks like there's been mismanagement here, and we are going to step in and deal with it. And really my question is to Helen, is it possible to introduce that kind of mechanism so that things can be rectified much more swiftly than they are at the present?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I've got a couple of points to make in response. Can you hear me okay? First is that part of the establishment of My Charity Commission's account was make sure that we had proper oversight and management of people's personal data. So we were also kind of protecting trustees' information and meeting legal duties around that. We have made significant progress since launching a very new portal with our speed of being able to be contacted to discuss it. And there is an enrolment process, so I do understand and accept that where there needs to be a change made, you might need advice and support to go through those steps to get that right. But we do deal with a number of cases and instances where we know this issue arises and there are disputes in charities, where that is causing concern for the proper oversight of the charity by trustees and it's affecting how the success of a charity. We will put that to the Commission, we'll put that as the Commission to charities and explore whether that represents wider concerns. So it is the case that we do escalate those matters with charities within with our kind of remit and available resources. And if you've got particular examples, please let me know how we can help.
I think we accept it's really difficult within our current powers because, as you know, one of the powers not granted to us, which is still reserved to the High Court, is we cannot determine who are the validly appointed trustees. So the challenge we have is if we've got two different arguments being presented and two different versions, actually we have to say, we're really sorry, we know it's expensive, but you're going to have to go to the High Court because we don't have the lawful power to determine who are the validly appointed trustees. And that's something we're engaging with government about at the moment.
I think sometimes the most thing is that, we're so clearly a hijack, where it's so clearly a hijack where they haven't followed the procedure in the governing document. They've just got one rogue trustee and he's made all the changes. Then it's so clear that this is mismanagement by the trustees. It's not really a legal dispute. It's not an election that is questioned. Was it a proper election? Was it carried out properly? But it's just someone sneaking in through the back door. Surely in that situation, it must be possible to act more swiftly without having to go to the High Court, which nowadays is such a delay.
It is.
You have to wait a year just to get the first hearing,
Yeah.
let alone get anywhere. Thank you.
No, thank you. Really valid points, and we will take that away and have a look into it. And we have a question from the audience online.
Elsewhere. While diversity and choice in the sector is positive, will the Commission ever encourage those considering starting a new charity to first explore existing organisations that may already address similar needs?
Helen?
Of course, thank you very much. Thank you for your question, the person who's provided that online. So we've talked about our ability and requirements to make statutory decisions on what is lawful. So any organisation that meets the legal criteria to be a charity is an organisation that will register a charity. That means they either further one or more of the 13 charitable purposes in law, they exist to promote public benefit, and also that they're under the jurisdiction of the High Court in England and Wales. We can't insist that charities consider if others are best furthering the purpose of their campaign, but we do encourage it. And our charity register is there to demonstrate lots of charities that are locally and operating nationally. And of course, we're available through our registration team and contact centre if people want to think through that option.
So Antonia first. Stephen, will come to you. There's a gentleman there. Hand up. So Antonia first.
Sorry. Hello, I'm Antonia Swinson. I'm Chief Executive of the Ethical Property Foundation, the property advice charity for the sector. As we've seen, the gentleman here, property is emotive, it's expensive, it takes hours of trustees and staff time. I think the sentence that you said, David, that really struck with me is the Charity Commission is in a unique position. And so you are. We have 1 million trustees that you obviously are there to champion in many ways. But what we find in my daily work is the very low level of property understanding and knowledge that is available to trustees, the lack of interest in grant funders, apparently, in educating the trustees, and the huge issues that we've got, because as your risk assessment rightly pointed out earlier in the year, the financial problems that our sector has are enormous, and down the line, inevitably, this leads to property decision-making, whether centred on leases or on purchase or sale. We've got some very, very big guns to our head as a sector when it comes to property, not least our relationship with local authorities. And I suppose it's a question, how can the Charity Commission in its unique position engage with funders, grant-making trusts and trustees to up their game when it comes to trustee education and understanding of their property responsibilities?
Thanks, Antonia. And we've worked together in the past in doing exactly that kind of thing. Paul, do you want to?
Yes, so we've got a programme driven out of my team focused on both refreshing our guidance for trustees on their duties and responsibilities, but also then actively communicating those out. So we, as well as making guidance clearer, simpler, easier to understand, we're then thinking about, well, where are the target audiences to kind of get these messages out to? Is it trustees as a whole? Is it particular groups of trustees? How can we work with organisations such as your own or others to kind of get out to trustees and help them and their staff to understand the law? We have, for example, done an active programme of work around local authorities where it became clear that a number of them were holding assets that were charitable, that they perhaps had lost sight of the fact that they were charitable rather than local authority property. So we have not only refreshed our guidance for local authorities on trusteeship, but we have also then actively got out into a range of local government associations, the LGA and others, been out to meetings online and in person to really try and explain what the guidance requires when making decisions around your trustee role in that circumstance. I'm really happy to have a conversation about if there's other work that we can put into the programme going forward in the areas that you're concerned about.
So, gentleman there. Then gentleman here, and then Sir Stephen.
Nick Phillips, Chief Executive of the Arms House Association, representing about 1,600 different charities. Firstly, thank you, David, to you and your team for terrific delivery. I'm particularly interested in the increased funding that you've received. You mentioned that your caseworkers have moved from 38 cases to 82 cases, a huge workload of which they shoulder very, very well. Can I ask you what our trustees will see in terms of difference of delivery with this increased funding, both in terms of casework and also the position that charities rely on the good reputation of the charity sector? So can you tell us how that money is going to be spent in terms of enforcement as well? So that's service and enforcement based on the increased funding. Thank you.
It's a really good question. Thanks, Nick. So it's firstly a recognition that demand on the Commission has been increasing over a period of time. So it is to respond to that increasing demand. So what you will see is all of the investment is either in technology or is in frontline services. So it will be immediately on the 1st of April. In fact, we will advertise before Christmas for 60 new case officers for the Commission, which is a significant, it's about an 18% uplift in our case working function. But at the same time, the answer isn't always to add more people. It is how can we utilise technology to free up the brilliant expertise and capability we've got to deal with the more complex issues and to support trustees and charities more on what they're trying to deal with. So what you're going to see is, bear in mind we've got to train them and they are experts, so it takes a while for our caseworkers to become fully functional. What you will start to see is timeliness start to be addressed in some of the engagements with us. You will also start to see us coming out to the sector from January next year to start to engage with you on what services are working well for you, what services aren't working well, and therefore where do you want us to focus some of that investment. And also internally, it will really help us with enforcement because part of it is going to be about how do we store data and how do you submit data to us. So digital data, much easier now with artificial intelligence to automatically match data up across government, automatically easier for it to do some of the algorithms that will check, is this data within parameters, or actually flag to caseworkers there's something you might want to look at here. And also we can, as we've done in the past, we can automate some decisions because the data we hold about charities matched with some of the data provided to us by charities. Actually, in about 90% of some of the cases previously, you can prove that The data we already hold is what we need to make a decision, provided you give us some of the other data. So it's a mix of automation, technology to support our expert caseworkers, and an increase in headcount.
Thank you. My name's Jim Monaghan. I'm from Covent Garden. I'm a colleague of David's, but I'm talking about the Jubilee Hall, which is a very similar situation. And I think people should be conscious that in central London, property is worth a great deal of money, and developers eye it and put people on to trusts in order to exploit it. And in this particular case, over a period of a year, 11 trustees were reduced to 4, and the way that was done was by removing trustees as directors of the trading company. And because they were linked with, they were no longer trustees and no longer directors of the company, they no longer were trustees of the charity. This was raised to yourselves, asking for help, and in particular drawing your attention to your own guidance about the disposal of charitable land. No consultation took place in the area, despite you claiming that it did. I know, I live there, no public meetings were held. It is only after a huge campaign that anything began to happen. I suppose what I'm saying is that where things go wrong with the charities, it's like dealing with Ofwat, dealing with you. You promise a lot, but actually there's little substance that you appear to wish to do. You appear to be always saying your limited powers, but you're not willing to use them. In the case that David raised, your answer was classic. You didn't say, we will take this up with government and see if we can change the legislation. One got the feeling you were hiding again behind your rules and regulations. So in this particular case, in the Jubilee Hall, you had Westminster City Councillor representation on the board, which was determined and set up by the charity and the regulations, who was summarily dismissed and suddenly found he was no longer there. Representations were made to you, and it led absolutely nowhere. And consequently, I'm sorry to say, because the sort of the public, or at least my view, and in the Covent Garden area, is that the Charity Commissioner isn't an organisation one could go to get a satisfactory solution when things go extremely wrong. Unfortunately, in this case, the local community has lost our sports centre, which we struggled for 50 years to build, to make, to convert, to get the building listed, to stop the development, and now it's no longer in the ownership of the local community, and absolutely against all the trustees, the constitution, and everything else. And we looked to you, and you failed us. You failed us really badly.
So I think I'm sorry that's your experience. You know, it's not the experience that we want people to have. But as we've set out, the challenge we do have is where trustees take decisions unlawfully, even when they're unpopular, and even if personally we wouldn't have taken those decisions, we are constrained by law in what we can do. And what we'll always do, and what we do in every case, is we will test the trustee decision making. We'll engage with the trustees, we'll ask for proof that they have taken the decisions in accordance with the Constitution, with the Memorandum and Articles of Association, and we will test that. And there are cases, Cardiff City Council tried to dispose of a piece of land. The local community came to us. The approach they had taken was clearly outside of their trustee duties. We intervened as the regulator, that stopped. So where there are lawful means for us to do so, we do so, and we've exercised our powers over 3,000 times over the last 12 months. So I understand in some circumstances we might not be able to give you what you want. It's not from want of trying or want of our desire to help. It is, as a quasi-judicial body, we can only exercise the powers Parliament's granted us.
I acknowledge that you're limited by the powers you have, but in our experience, you know, when you have a guidance on charity land, the overview and how it should be done, and to be told that they're complying with it when demonstrably they hadn't, And when trustees of 11 get reduced in a year to 4 by a small cabal who get arranged for everybody to be chucked off, and all the people are writing to you saying what's going on, it doesn't tally. So I'm sorry, I mean, your letters to me, which were the same letter that you wrote to everybody, so clearly it wasn't catered to the questions I wrote to you at length over a year ago. It's just, the image it gives is that you feel powerless and you're not willing to act. And that's why I compare you, and it's meant to be derogatory. You are appearing like Ofwat. You're watching these terrible things happening, claiming that you're doing something, but in practice, not. So turning to David's question, will you go to the government and say that, frankly, the way that properties are sold cannot be done in secret, and ask them to change the legislation back? I mean, that's where action is shown, if you take these things up seriously. Thank you, and I'll shut up now.
No, thank you for making the point, and the team will be around afterwards to engage. We have a question from home and a question from Sir Stephen Bubb at the front as well.
Thank you. What advice can you provide to trustees of charities with single-sex objects who may now feel caught between a rock and a hard place since the For Women Scotland UK Supreme Court judgment?
Eva?
Thank you for that question. Trustees need to make their own decisions for each of their own charities in the best interest of their charity. And we've been quite clear that for some charities and for some trustees, that will mean waiting for the statutory code that's coming out from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. There are other trustees who will feel that the situation that their charity is in means that they need to take legal advice and potentially act sooner than that. So it's up to each set of trustees in their own unique circumstances to consider what is right for their charity and in their best interests. And as David has been quite clear, we expect charities to make those decisions and make them well, and then it's not for the Commission to intervene.
Hello, Helen Day, Governance Manager of the Royal Countryside Fund and also a trustee in my spare time. I just wondered, really looking to the future, how the Commission is going to guide for charities to use the responsible use of AI in their reporting. This is quite a big hot topic in corporate reporting, and I wondered if there was any guidance that was just about to drop off onto our desks and how we should use that. And just one short question, which is, tell me more about your engagement with the other regulators in Scotland and Northern Ireland as a dual-listed regulatory charity ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Paul to take up the guidance question. In terms of engagement with other regulators, so I have a quarterly call with my fellow CEOs, and actually that includes the Republic of Ireland as well. So we work with the Republic of Ireland on SORP, along with many other things, and we try and coordinate across both the UK and the Republic as far as possible. So yeah, quarterly engagement. The teams are engaged on a day-to-day basis. And if there is a regulatory concern raised, then at the moment, the way the MOU works with the other regulators is if it's dual regulated and it's regulated in England and Wales, then we will take primacy as the regulator for the investigation. So that day-to-day working in collaboration is there and is very frequent.
So thank you for the question. We, as I imagine many of you, are really closely involved in kind of engaging in discussion and debate about what AI means for us all. And you know, there are some groups that have been established within the sector that are having kind of active discussion and engagement with the government on this. We are as well. We don't have any guidance imminently due out on AI. The way we often think about this is, you know, new technologies come through. You know, cryptocurrency was a big discussion 3 or 4 years ago, and we kind of think about, is this something where we need to bring out specific bespoke guidance about a technology or a development, or is it something that's cross-cutting into a range of different areas? And a blog that I wrote about a year ago, which I recommend, which talks a bit about AI from our perspective, said, and that continues to be my view at the moment, that actually we need to think about this in that cross-cutting way. So, for example, on decision-making, we've recently refreshed our guidance for trustees on charity decision-making, and it's very clear that trustees need to have the relevant facts in front of them. They need to make decisions in the best interest of their charities. They need to ignore irrelevant factors, have a focus on relevant factors and so on. And you need to be really thinking about in terms of the information that you're making decisions founded on, not simply relying on AI, for example, but making sure you're drawing on what you need. AI might be part of that. That's kind of one example of where AI might bite. But I'm really interested to continue the discussion. There might come a moment where actually it is appropriate for us to produce bespoke guidance on it. On the particular point I think you made about charity reporting, I'm happy to have a conversation afterwards about where you think that might be relevant for our guidance.
Caitlin at the front. We've got time probably for 2 more questions. So, the lady at the back.
Stephen Bubb, the Gradle Institute of Charity at Oxford University. Mark spoke rightly of his concern about the attacks on charity workers, especially in asylum seeker migrant charities. One of the core purposes of charity is the ability to speak truth to power. And there must be concern that those sorts of attacks and an increasingly polarized debate in that area and others will dull the voice we have or make charities fear speaking out. And I'm hoping that the Charity Commission will be fierce in defending our right as charities to speak truth to power.
Absolutely, Stephen. And I think as you heard from Mark as our chair and from the whole board who've been really clear on this point, our role is not just to enforce, it is to enable, and it is to defend the rights of charities to do their legal duties and comply with charity law. So as long as those are the powers that Parliament and the statutory objectives have tasked us with, we will always defend the sector's right to deliver their charitable purposes. Gentleman and then Claire.
Excuse me, Michael Kelly. I'm a trustee of several trusts, but there's one reason I'm here today, and that is to thank you for your efforts, because one of the trusts, and the educational one, in a subject which is controversial, we have been subject via the Commission to several attempts to shut us down. And so could I ask you, do you have any sense of how many of the complaints are coming into you about charities are for the purposes of putting us out of business?
I think it's fair to say, as we've set out, charities are not exempt from the really polarising world we're living in at the moment. And whilst we would hope charities would sit outside that, we know they're caught up in it. But the one thing I would say, and I hope you've heard from us today, is charities have always challenged society's beliefs today. They have always driven us forward to better ourselves as a society. And I just encourage every trustee and every charity, if your charitable purpose is in one of those controversial areas, keep going. Time has shown you will come out the other side of this. Society will, and society will be better for it. We know it's tough at the moment, but as your regulator, we will only intervene where there are breaches in law or statute. If you are complying with the law and charitable purposes, we will defend your right to do so.
Thank you.
One question here and then one more.
Thank you. Claire Mills, Co-Chief Executive of Charity Finance Group, but also a trustee and a beneficiary, like many of the people in the room. You've talked about lots of really big, important issues like inclusion and protecting people. I'm going to ask you about banking, which is much more everyday. We've done a lot of work over the last few years together to try and improve the access to banking services for charities, whatever size they are and wherever they're based. I wondered if you were seeing much improvement or reduction in comments about banking from people coming to your help desks, and if there was more we could do in the year ahead.
So I think I'll bring Paul in on this as well, but I think from my inbox, I did see the previous action that we took jointly with parts of the sector, with Gerald and others, and to write openly about some of the challenges that we were seeing in the sector. We did see it be addressed. We did see it improve. I think the honest answer is I've started to see it slip back. My inbox is starting again to get charities raising issues with me that they're facing with banks. So I think the action we took did have an impact, but sadly, I think something's happened and it's starting to roll back again. So I think there is something that we do need to relook at in this space over the next year. Paul?
Yeah, so we've really valued working with the Charity Finance Group and others in the sector to kind of try and tackle this together, and it has been a complex issue. We've been working with other regulators as well, like the FCA. We've been asking in our regular survey of trustees about issues with banking services. It was part of the evidence base, actually, that we were able to take to the banks and the government and others on this issue. And you know, we were in the first time we asked the question, we were over 40% of charities saying that they'd experienced problems with their banks that were quite significant during that past year. That ticked down a bit in the last survey. We'll be doing our trustee survey as usual in the next few months, and I'm expecting we'll ask the question again. So that will help us to track whether the slightly more kind of anecdotal inbox experience that David's described is what we're seeing from a representative sample of charities as well. We have seen some banks make quite substantial changes to their business models, actually, I think as a result of the direct pressure that we and you and others have applied and the focus that we've put in this area. So I'm hopeful that some of those will be enduring. I think some banks had, you know, frankly lost sight of charities and their uniqueness as customers, you know, and to be honest, as part of their kind of CSR offer as well. And I know that there are certainly some banks that I've been talking directly to where they have had a wake-up call, they have had made changes. I'm hoping that those will flow through into customers' real-life experiences, but I think we just need to keep on it, keep tracking, and keep talking, and come back to it as necessary.
So we have one final question here, and then there will be lunch served in the room directly below this, so do go downstairs for lunch and we will be around during that period, so you can ask us questions there.
Thank you. I'm Virginia Henley. I'm a charity law solicitor. I'm actually joined by a couple of colleagues here, so we're trying to pool lots of questions into one single question here. Thank you very much for all of the insights that we've had, and I think we've had some really interesting questions as well. My question, or our question, relates to charity registration applications. And I've been trying to get charities registered for many years now, and you won't be surprised to know that the process has changed considerably during that time. My concern as a legal advisor is that I always want to be able to give the best possible advice to clients who come to me who want to have their charity registered. Part of that is to do with timelines. Part of that is to do with knowing whether or not their charity will have a smooth ride through, whether it's genuinely charitable and so on. And I'm pleased to say that in our team, we always do get our charities registered. But we also quite often receive inquiries from members of the public who failed in their charity registration applications. All of this experience tells me that the current system is really patchy. So we cannot any longer honestly give our clients clear advice about how easy it will be or how long it will take to get their charity registered. It just isn't predictable. And my concern is that I think it really one of efficiency for the Charity Commission, because sometimes we will have a really helpful caseworker who will ask the right questions, will understand that the charity needs to be registered and so on, and will get through really quite efficiently. Other times, a charity registration application will be shut down. We could never have predicted it, and we'll have to go through the whole process of getting a fresh application in or appealing it or that sort of thing for really poor reasoning. So my concern is, how are the charity registration application team trained? Are you sure that you're putting enough investment into that? And if you've got more funding, which is fantastic to hear about, really happy for you and for the sector that you'll get that because it's much, much needed. But can you reassure us that some of that new resource will go into upskilling the registration team? Because I think there are gaps there.
Thanks for the question. And I think, firstly, we want everyone who's applying to register a charity, even if the answer is no, to have a good experience. So I think one of the things we have seen, and I talked about in my speech, is we're at record levels of applications to register a charity. So the average over the previous 5 years has been between 500 and 600 a month, and we're now at 1,000 a month applications. So you've got a doubling of the incoming application rate. That's going to be tough for any organisation to absorb without investment in technology and capacity. So we do know there have been some challenges there. I do think, though, that what we're trying to do is ensure, because we know from some of the cases we've had where we've registered an organisation and there's then gone on to be an issue relatively shortly after registration that's damaged public trust and confidence, or where there's been abuse and private benefit, we're trying to ensure we catch that at the registration point to prevent damage to public trust and confidence, because we know how integral that is to the ability for charities to raise money. I think, if I'm being frank, our technology in our application service at the moment is very old. It's not easy, and that hampers both you and your clients and us and our caseworkers. So there's a big investment going in technology in the Apply to Register a Charity service, and we are going to increase the caseworkers. And in terms of technical competence, just to reassure you, Eva, as the Director of Legal, oversees a status team, and I can tell you now they are the experts in the country in charitable status. And at one point, I know we've just lost Marion, who was one of our most experienced, but there was several hundred years of experience between them. So I know if I ever need a question answering on status and charitable status, the legal team actually are world experts in the organisation. So I hope that reassures you. Well, thank you very much to everyone who's attended and to everyone online who's asked questions. Those of you in the room, please do join us downstairs. Those of you online, apologies, you won't be able to join us, but thank you for your attendance.